Your project plan looks good on the paper, but you keep missing your deadlines. Maybe you haven't considered critical resources while planning your project. Today we will focus on critical resources, because ignoring critical resources and focusing only on dates and tasks may lead into bottlenecks, conflicts within project team and conflicts with stakeholders, and missed deadlines. My name is Peter. I am experienced project manager with PMP certification and PhD degree. In this video, I will show you how to identify critical resources, how failing to do so is impacting your project schedule, and how to do it in the right way so you have very professional and easygoing project schedule. Let's dive in. Recently I did record a video called Project Scheduling, Don't Focus on Dates. This is this video and I will give you a link in the description. And in that video I was focusing on common mistakes project managers do while creating their project schedule. So I will encourage you to watch also that video. Okay, coming back to critical resources. So in majority of the cases I came across in my professional careers, in my 20 years of running projects, critical resources was about people. So this is the most common case. So in my view, in order to with the very high probability to identify your critical resources in your project, I would start with people. So I would start first within your project team. So your key roles within your project team, we may consider here, depending on the project. If this is a software project, for instance, I can imagine architect, I can imagine business analyst, I can imagine coordinator of testing phase. So you need to think if these people have enough time allocated to this project and if this time allocated is real, so there won't be bottlenecks. They won't be creating bottlenecks because maybe they are engaged also in other projects and these other projects are having higher priority in your organization. So I would start with that. Okay, second thing I would do, I would consider if we have some critical resources within human resources in other departments with which we would be running this project. So broader stakeholders map, review of all the stakeholders who would be engaged in this project. Because if you have the stakeholder who only needs to be informed and updated from time to time on a bi-weekly or monthly basis, potentially they are not your critical resources. But if if you have some stakeholders, people from some unit or some department, which needs to be consulted, which needs to give you constant inputs to your project, or which can be even worse if you need some approvals from them. So for instance, in order to finish planning phase, you need their sign-off on business requirements. In order to finish testing phase, they need to be engaged in user acceptance testing and they need to confirm and approve that the product you prepared is good to go on the production. And if they are limited with time and capacity, this department, this unit is your critical resource. You should identify them as a critical resource. Okay, this was about human resources as critical resources based on the example of software development. Let's now consider different example. So let's imagine we are doing different type of the project, which is, for instance, construction project. So let's keep it simple. We are building some skyscraper. And let's assume that in order to build this skyscraper, we need some special equipment, which is required to a given phase of the project. And our company is not having this equipment in-house. We are outsourcing, so we need to order and pay this equipment. And let's imagine that in our area, availability of this equipment is quite limited. So then you should consider this special technology / equipment as critical resource in your construction project. Another example, which may be not very obvious, of critical resource is if you are running, for instance, regulatory project. So stakeholder in your project is an external body, and it's public regulator which regulates your industry. So this is very often the case in banking industry or big pharma industry, for instance. So availability and timeline of interacting with the representatives of this regulator should be also considered as critical resource in your project, because you don't have them on demand, and if you approach a certain phase of the project or certain milestones, you can't assume that they would be available for you and they would be giving you feedback or approval within the timeline you assumed. Okay, so I gave you 3 examples. I think that by now you kind of understand what we mean by critical resources. And like with everything else, during the planning phase of the project, similar like with risk identification, you need to spend some time and effort in order to identify these critical resources. And if you raise this topic with your project team, they will help you, and it won't be very difficult to do. The most important thing is to do it, to plan this task of identifying critical resources and really focus on that. And once we have that completed, now we can think about second step. Second step would be to consider how these critical resources are impacting my project. And if you answer this question, you will know exactly how you should plan your project schedule around critical resources. Okay, now I will share with you how I was approaching that element of planning around critical resources. So what I was doing during my professional career in my project, and I will exactly tell you what worked very well. So once you have, and let's come back to this example of human resources being critical resources, so simply people, especially within your project team, because this is the most common scenario. So once you identified critical resource in your project team, okay, and let's assume that it's our simply business analyst. So business analyst / subject matter expert. So the person who has broad knowledge and in-depth knowledge about the content of the project we are running. So about the product we are building or enhancing functionalities, about technology in which we are developing or creating or producing whatever product or service we are creating. And this key resource, as it is very often the case because if they are highly specialized, they are probably not working only in one project. So scenario very often is that they are working on multiple projects, and also they are very often dragged into business as usual activities because they are supporting other existing projects, because if something happens on the production of the with the product which is already on the production, and they are also second or third line of support. So their capacity is extremely limited. This is very often the case. Okay, so what I was doing in my project and it worked well. First of all, I was having serious conversation with these people at the beginning of the project. I was trying to figure out together with them what is their real capacity currently, potentially in the next weeks and the next months, what they are having in their pipeline, in how many projects they are engaged. So I was trying to understand as a project manager how badly their limited capacity will impact my project. Is it like high risk, medium risk, or low risk, if you like? Then I was very often trying to propose discussion with their line manager. So I was potentially meeting with these two people together. So my critical resource and their line manager. And I was trying to discuss it in three. Okay, if potentially the capacity of this critical resource was having high impact on my project, if this was my assessment, I was trying to agree with this line manager. First, can we change the priorities? Or if line manager was not a right person to do this decision, sometimes I was taking that, for instance, to my project sponsor or to the PMO, project management office, and trying to maybe reconsider the priorities of the projects and priorities of this critical resource. But if this was not the right way, because they were telling me, no, the priorities are right, your project would be on the third position in the priority list, that's fine. Then my next question to the line manager was, okay, is there anybody else in your team who can support my critical resource and at the same time my project? And that when we can reassure that if I'm running some tasks during my project and I'm having limited capacity of my critical resource, I have somebody else who can help us, so the impact would be mitigated. Okay, and the last thing I was doing, taking all of that into consideration after all these discussions, I was trying to incorporate all that information into my project schedule. So depending on the fact how badly capacity of my critical resource is impacting potentially my project, depending on the fact if I have some backup solution in the form of another resource which maybe is not having enough the same skills, exactly the same skills, but it's good enough to support us in these difficult moments, and thanks to that not to create too much bottleneck in my project. So also depending on that, I was giving in my project schedule enough buffer around these tasks with critical resources. So concept is very simple. Problem is not many project managers are doing that. And this is extremely important, because if you will do that during planning phase of your project, it will dramatically increase probability that your project schedule will hold. So I really encourage you to think about this step and perform it. Okay, that is all I have prepared in this video. Thank you very much. Good luck and goodbye.